Welcome back to the Farm Show on Westplex Talk 1045 for Saturday, February 28th, 2026. As a reminder, you can hear a replay of this very show on Sundays at 8 a.m. And you can always find old episodes, vintage episodes, by going to at Farm Show Radio on YouTube. When we think back to the very best interviews on the Farm Show, I start with the very first show we ever did back in July of 2025 when we hosted Missouri Ag Director Chinn. Chris talked about a few issues that were very timely, including the state fair. But she also talked about a big piece of economic development news for our broadcast area. We're joined by the director of the Missouri Department of Agriculture, Chinn. Director Chinn, welcome to the maiden voyage of the Farm Show.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be one of your first guests on your show.
It would be nobody else but you, Director Chinn, let me tell you. So let's get right into it. In our four-county area, Warren County, Franklin County, St. Charles County, and West St. Louis County, the biggest economic development news in agriculture in the last several years has been a beef processing facility. Tell us about it.
Well, we're really excited that America's Heartland packing facility opened up in Warren County in April. This was a multi-year project that we worked very closely with Warren County leaders, their Economic Development Committee, the State Department of Economic Development, the State Department of Ag, Natural Resources. It truly was a team effort to try and support this new business coming into our state. We view this as a win for not only Warren County, but all of the state of Missouri, because it's going to allow more cattlemen and women to retain cattle on their family farms and bring that next generation back home to the farm or ranch. It's also going to support local farm stores, the veterinarians in our state. The list just goes on. And when our rural communities are able to thrive, our urban communities are able to thrive as well. So we're really excited about this opportunity.
It's a huge economic impact for our area here. Now, you've dealt with a lot of companies, large and small, from around the country and really all around the world. Why did American Foods Group choose Missouri for this facility?
You know, there are multiple reasons. I never want to talk on behalf of the company, but when we were visiting with them, trying to attract them to the state, you know, our location was really one of their prime factors. We're right in the middle of the country. We're within 600 miles radius of all the cattle, or the majority of the cattle in the United States, so that was very attractive. But they really liked the Warren County community. They came multiple times. They visited the community. They got to know people, and they just really liked the community. People were so welcoming. They really liked how the state and the local community were working together as one team. They hadn't seen that before, and that made us unique. They really felt like they would be a good fit for the state of Missouri, and we couldn't agree more. They are very family focused. They center everything they do around their employees to make sure they're comfortable and well taken care of. And that's exactly the type of employer we want to have in Missouri.
You know, you've been a leader for decades in the animal ag space, and you've seen and heard a lot of misinformation, mischaracterization about these type of facilities. And it's probably particularly egregious when a company comes from, let's say, out of state. People would tend to mischaracterize or provide misinformation about what these facilities do. What role do state agencies like yours play in making sure that these type of facilities contribute in a positive way to the community?
Well, that's a great question, John. It's one we don't get asked very often, so I appreciate you asking that. You know, one of the things that we did as a state is we took a group of community leaders and farmers and ranchers to their plant in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We wanted to learn more about this company. If they were going to become a part of our state and our business community, we wanted to see what type of a business they were and how they took care of their employees. And we were blown away with what we saw. They have an amazing facility up in Green Bay. They treat their employees like family. Everybody who we talked to in the Green Bay community couldn't say enough good things about this company. And they really are focused on making sure their employees are well taken care of. So that was one of the main reasons that we were really thankful that they chose Missouri, because we knew that when they came to Warren County, they were going to treat their employees just like family.
That was Missouri Ag Director Chris Chinn back on the maiden voyage of the farm show back in July. Next up, we have robot-led weed control, chemistry-free weed control. We had a fascinating conversation with Greenfield Robotics' Jared Brown back in August. Have a listen. Today, we are joined by the head of business development for Greenfield Robotics, Jared Brown. Jared, welcome to the Farm Show.
Thanks for having me.
So, if folks go back and look at your long, extensive resume in agriculture, you've worked for some of the most well-known names in agriculture. You've worked for some really aggressive, dynamic young companies, including some that have been gobbled up by global conglomerates. I don't think you've probably worked at any company that had the type of origin story that's as unique as Greenfield Robotics. Can you tell us a little bit about Greenfield Robotics' origin story?
Yeah, great question, John. And you're absolutely right. I've never worked for a company that started out in a similar capacity. I think most startups start up with the intention of building some big company and making a lot of money on an exit, and that's not how Greenfield started. Greenfield started from our founder is a third generation farmer, and it really started with the mission of eliminating chemicals, and that was because of the impact that they believed chemicals had on his father, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And so from the very beginning of Greenfield, it started a very mission purpose, and that was to eliminate chemicals in our food. And so it's really exciting. It's a very big challenge, but here we are. What is this, 6 years down the line, and we're really starting to scale now and help farmers, farm without chemicals, or at least with reduced chemical usage.
Last week we talked and we were previewing the Ag Innovation Showcase, and there's two companies that will be featured. One of them is AGI Bin Manager, and the other one is Greenfield Robotics. What can folks expect to see next Friday at the Innovation Showcase in Columbia?
Yeah, so we're going to be out there. Unfortunately, I don't believe we'll be operating robots in a field, just because everything's pretty mature there as far as crops go. But we will have a robot there that will be moving around and people can observe. Our field operations manager, Aaron Lacey, will be in attendance to answer questions about Greenfield, and you'll have the ability to set up meetings with myself as well. I won't be in attendance, but yeah, we're just going to be there to field questions and talk about the things that we're doing with Missouri soy, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Earlier in the year, you appeared on the Ag Inspo podcast, and I would suggest folks go take a look because they have a lot of really great footage of what your technology is able to do. And they ask, of course, the question that you probably get a lot, Jared, which is about the affordability of this technology. And I think you made a surprising point in there about the potential for cost effectiveness, because people just assume that robots are prohibitively expensive. Can you touch a little bit on how this technology could actually save growers money?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is we don't want to cost farmers more money. They're squeezed too much as it is. Margins are thin, and if you look at the traditional trajectory of like farm equipment, that the price chart just goes up. It never goes down. It's just always up. And we like the TV model, so that graph that goes down as the technology gets better. If you think about how big screen TV started, they were thousands of dollars,
For sure.
and now they're hundreds, and they're better. And we think we can get to something similar there. But yeah, the idea is that not that we're trying to, the full purpose is to save farmers money, but we don't want to cost them money. What we want to do is eliminate chemicals in our food supply. And the idea with the robot is that the more you use it, the more your cost per acre is driven down. And that's why we've branched out into other things with our robots. So not only do they cut weeds today, they also foliar feed. And so that's one more function that bot can do in the field that will drive your cost per acre down. But our goal is to get that cost per acre down to $5 a pass. That's not going to be this year, but you can expect, if you're spending anywhere between 80 and some guys spend 110 an acre managing weeds and soybeans. If you're spending that, it's not going to cost you more to run the robot, especially if you spread that cost over a period of time of like 5 years.
And you've explained before the space requirements here, and to what type of field or what type of spacing are required with the Greenfield Robotics robots?
Yeah, so we started in Kansas on dry land, and most of the dry land, soybeans and corn around here is 30 inches. So, and milo, and so they're designed for 30-inch crop rows, and we can do greater than 30 inch, just not smaller. It's really crop agnostic. The type of crop doesn't matter. It's just as long as there's enough space for that robot to cut down in the alley between rows.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to The Farm Show. We're visiting right now with Jared Brown. He's the head of business development at Greenfield Robotics. They'll be at the Ag Innovation Showcase at the Missouri Soybean Association location in Columbia. Jared, you've talked before about a lot of times when people hear robots in agriculture, particularly in weed management, they think of cultivation, or they think of a light beam that would fry a weed, or something that would electrocute or set fire to a weed. We've heard before in weed management that there's no such thing as a weed that's resistant to steel. What really is the advantage of your technology versus some of these experimental, fire or electrocution type robots?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of those, that technology has its place, and it can be effective. The challenge is we started in traditional no-till settings, dry land, no-till, and so you have a lot of weed pressure. And if you try to control those weeds with a laser, it's just not going to work. They do work in heavily cultivated fields, especially crop. I've watched them work, and they work well. But the differentiation with Greenfield Robotics is that we're just cutting. So we're cutting the weeds right above the ground, and a lot of people think, oh, they'll just grow back. Well, they do sometimes. But last year we only ran 80% of the acres that we only ran one time. So a lot of it's about the timeliness of getting in the field and getting those weeds cut. If you can get that done, shortly before canopy and get that crop to canopy, then you don't really have a weed pressure issue anymore. But you might have to run it twice, maybe 3 times, but only 80% we ran once.
Yeah, that's a lot fewer than I think most folks would expect. Especially if you had been going through and cultivating, this is an entirely different technology. So you've been gracious with your time today, Jared. I'll ask one more question before we go. It's one of those uncomfortable questions that conversations folks have in the ag industry. When you hear Greenfield Robotics talk about a chemical-free future, or at least reducing the number of inputs that farmers use, you guys use language that is somewhere between ambitious and aggressive when it comes to pesticides. So my question is, when you meet with ag groups, do you get a lot of pushback from those traditional agrochemical companies about the language you use in reducing inputs? Or would you say that most of these agribusiness giants actually see the writing on the wall and embrace a reduction in inputs?
That's a really good question. I feel like we haven't gotten a lot of pushback from. I mean, here's the deal. No one wants to use chemicals. Like when we have conversations with farmers, we've never ran across a farmer that said they love using a chemical.
Yeah.
It's all out of necessity. And yes, I agree. Greenfield Robotics uses aggressive language. We're using aggressive language because, I mean, you have to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And frankly, I mean, Parkinson's and dementia and all of these other diseases, they're pretty aggressive too.
For sure.
And there is no denial that the chemicals that end up in our crops and inevitably in our food and in our beverages can be very aggressive and are causing harm. And no one is debating that. And so yes, we're aggressive about the language we use, but we're not getting a lot of pushback from the industry. And if you look at the traditional large input companies, they're all doing a little bit to prepare. I think they see the writing on the wall, like you mentioned, and they're finding other ways to make revenue because I think they see it coming. And if they don't, they probably should open their eyes because I think chemical free is the way of the future.
Yeah, I think a lot of these companies, we certainly see these companies that have open innovation systems, either partnering with companies like Greenfield Robotics or looking to acquire them outright. I think because they see the trend that farming is going today. For folks who want to learn more, do you point to any specific websites or resources where folks can find out more?
Yeah, so you can go to greenfieldrobotics.com. There's also plenty of things on YouTube videos, and going to greenfieldrobotics.com. We're also doing a crowdfund right now, so you can check that out. That information is all on the website as well. And you fill out a form if you want more information. That data doesn't go into a black hole. It ends up in my mail, in my inbox, and you'll get a meeting link to set up a meeting to talk to me personally if you're interested in learning more as a farmer. So
that's fantastic. Well, folks can meet representatives of Greenfield Robotics in Columbia on August 22nd. You can find out more by going to mosoy.org. Jared, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
All right, we're back here on Saturday, February 28th now. I gotta say, as a longtime chemistry and crop protection guy, robots, lasers, non-chemical weed control is the way of the future, along with a little bit of herbicide still in the mix. When we come back, ag education in the classroom. You're listening to The Farm Show on Westplex Talk 104.5.